Can Argentina become a hotbed for Bitcoin adoption? Well, in this video, I'm going to be covering some of the key stories that we have seen coming out of Argentina recently, as well as taking a look at the larger macroeconomic picture of Argentina and underlining some key examples where Argentina could have used Bitcoin. Before we jump into that, just a quick note that Nash, previously known as NEX or the Neon Exchange, one of the most anticipated decentralized exchanges coming to crypto land, is taking signups. And not only are they taking signups, but they're giving away a bunch of money. $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and 45,000 NEX tokens, all up for grabs. If you want to get signed up for that, there is a link down below where you can go ahead and get signed up. Now, on to Argentina. So Argentina has recently settled an export deal with Paraguay using Bitcoin. Now, Paraguay bought some pesticides and some fumigation products worth around $7,000. So that may not be the biggest deal that's ever happened in terms of international trade, but it is an important one because they settled the deal using Bitcoin. So the purchase was paid for in Bitcoin and then it was settled, converted into Argentine pesos in order to settle the account. So basically the exporter of the agricultural chemicals received pesos, but the person in Paraguay was able to pay for those products using Bitcoin. Now, this deal was facilitated by a company called BitX, which is a part of the Argentine government's program Exporta Simple, which facilitates the export of goods and services worth less than $15,000. This is a great proof of concept for Argentina to show that, yes, indeed, you can send Bitcoin for international payments. No surprise to us, but for governments, this needs to be proven. This is important, but it's not the first time we've seen a country do this. We did see, for example, Russia and Turkey settle 3,000 metric tons of wheat paid for in Bitcoin last year. Let's see Argentina actually ramp this up, make it a regular thing. Now that is where power lies. If this becomes the standard for Argentine export payments, I think we're an incredibly long way away from that happening, but the first step is still important. Bitcoin is now being accepted as payment for transportation in 37 Argentinian cities. Wow, that is a lot. Users of public transportation can now reload their SUBE card using Bitcoin. A company called Alto Viaje is in charge of managing the SUBE platform on which the cards are refilled. And then we have, again, BitX coming in, that fintech company that has been working since 2014, basically being in charge of converting the Bitcoin to fiat. That's awesome. This is really, really great in terms of adoption, that people can go in and do something really everyday, basic, simple, like paying to go on the subway or the bus or the ferry or whatever it might be. This is important. This is how adoption happens. People are going to go in, they're going to see that sign that says, hey, I can pay in Bitcoin here. The word will spread. If you are in Argentina, I would love to know from you. Have you topped up your SUBE card using Bitcoin yet? Be very anxious to hear about it down below in the comment section. And access to Bitcoin in Argentina has never been easier for Argentinians. And that is really important because it's all great to have all of this stuff happening in the background if no one can get their hands on any Bitcoin. We have seen new Bitcoin ATMs popping up all of the time, according to reports coming out of the country. Argentina has also been seeing very strong volume on platforms like local Bitcoins for buying Bitcoin. Demand is growing as the local currency continues to burn. Argentina could really be a perfect country for Bitcoin adoption. We've seen how the Argentine peso has suffered, and for regular citizens, this could be key to their economic freedom and success moving into the future. But it could also be very, very interesting for the country itself. We've talked about the idea of Russia adding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, but it could also be something that could be of amazing benefit to a country like Argentina. Having a look at the Argentine peso, it has got a very sad looking history. Check out this 10-year chart on the Argentine peso versus the US dollar. This is an incredibly brutal chart. One peso back in 2009 bought 29 US cents. In 2019, it buys 2.5 US cents. That seems like a cryptocurrency chart. Well, actually, cryptocurrencies go back up, and on a 10-year time frame, the chart for Bitcoin looks incredibly different, even though we have seen it come back down significantly from its $20,000 highs. Comparing to the Argentine peso and its slow decline into near irrelevance is painful. That has real effects on real people. It's not a laughing matter at all, even though looking at that chart you might think it's a joke. It is not a joke at all. This has real effects on the real world, on real people's wealth. Can the situation get much worse for the peso? Is it time to buy the Argentine peso dip? I'm not going to touch that at all, without a doubt, but what we see is the government only implementing policies of increasing the debt. Austerity. Oh, don't we just love austerity? Amazing, isn't it? More poverty, more hardship for regular people. Bitcoin can be a safe haven for the average Argentine. Very important. Last year alone, the Argentine peso went down 50%. And hey, in cryptocurrencies, we're like 50% drop, that's nothing. Take my 90%. But look at the history of the Argentine peso. If somebody had invested all of their pesos into Bitcoin in 2009, they would be in a very, very different economic situation right now. Instead of seeing their purchasing power go down by 90%, they would have taken all those gains of Bitcoin. Even if we're just staying where we are right now, they would have gained massively. But that's for average citizens. What about the government? Well, Bitcoin is infinitely superior to gold. And I know there's a lot of gold bugs out there in the audience, and you guys think, well, you know, gold, it's got a lot of great benefits. And we've done lots of videos talking about gold before, but Argentina is currently sitting around 60 tons of gold, or 2.5 billion US dollars worth of gold. But like so many countries, it has leased out portions of its gold. For example, back in 2017, they leased 11 tons of their gold to the UK. Now let's just imagine for a moment that Argentina elects a socialist government next time. Democracy stuff, people electing governments that other people don't like. Democracy only works when it works for some people's interests, remember that. Now, let's say that they elect a socialist government. Can we imagine that it would be possible for rich and powerful countries to pull the strings on Argentina's gold, much like they did to Venezuela recently, to keep them from accessing their own money? Remember, the UK has already proven that it is all too happy to withhold gold from countries that own that gold. You can disagree with the politics all you like, but the reality is that Bitcoin does not have that problem. Bitcoin doesn't care about any of the politics. Bitcoin just keeps going. So in terms of an international censorship-resistant store of value, Bitcoin has gold beat every time. And it's also infinitely superior to the dollar. I know we all know that, but still, I think it's really interesting to look at a brief history of Argentine debt, the vulture funds, and financial terrorism, because that's basically what this is. Back in late 2001, Argentina defaulted on $132 billion in loans during its disastrous depression. Now, it was unable to pay back its creditors, unsurprisingly, so Argentina restructured its debt in 2 rounds of negotiations. The package discounted the bonds by 2/3, but provided a mechanism for more payments when the country's economy recovered, which it did eventually. Now, a vast majority of the bondholders, 93% of them, accepted the deal. Among the small minority who refused the deal, though, were investors who had bought many of their bonds at a huge discount. So they didn't hold those bonds before. Somebody was dumping them on the market for pennies on the dollar. These guys came in and bought that bad debt. Well, after the country defaulted, and even after the first round of restructuring, they came in, they got the debt, and then is where the story starts to get interesting, because these kind of investors have earned the name vulture funds. What they do is they go around the world looking for distressed debt, and then often with the aid of their lawyers and their lobbyists, they try to force a settlement at the original price. Argentina refused to pay these people who were holding out. They went with the 93% of people who had restructured the debt. Now, the funds have tried all sorts of ways to make Argentina comply, including at one point having an iconic Argentine ship seized in Ghana. Think about that. That is some scary power, and it's gross. This is bankers doing this. This is not a military or something. This is a vulture fund putting in a call to a friend, seizing a ship in a third country. That's power. That's money. Then we move up to 2012. There was a ruling by Judge Thomas Griesa of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Now, this totally changed the game for the vulture funds, basically ruling that Argentina had to pay them back at the full value. So these guys bought it for, let's say, 3 cents on the dollar, and the court comes in and says, no, you have to pay them $1 for $1. That's terrible and broken. It cost Argentina billions. And this kind of financial terrorism is horrendous. This is why the international system is so broken. Now, all that is very whack, but here's where it gets crazy, and here's where Bitcoin comes in. We're not just babbling on about politics here, guys, because Bitcoin does have a very important role to play in this. Now, this judge came in and issued an injunction blocking Argentina from paying anything to the creditors who had accepted the deal until it had paid the vultures back in full. So what happened is Argentina was doing its payments, sent the money to its international bank accounts, so from Argentina to the international bank accounts to pay back everybody who had agreed to take the settlement deal. This judge steps in, freezes Argentina's international bank accounts in different countries, saying, no, you're not allowed to pay back these other creditors. You have to pay these guys back first, then everybody else can get their money. That is insane. This tiny group of well-connected, despicable investors came in, manipulated the situation, screwed regular Argentinian people, because you have to remember, where did this money come from? Taxes in the backs of regular Argentine people who got the short end of the stick. These guys get rich, regular people get screwed. This is financial terrorism. This is fiat currency. This is the US dollar. This would not have happened had Argentina been paying the other creditors using Bitcoin. The US courts would not have been able to freeze their Bitcoin accounts like they did with the dollar accounts, because governments, particularly the US government, has near complete control over the majority of the global financial system. And its ability to pull these power levers and do things like this so that some tiny minority of people can get extremely rich happens all the time. It's very powerful and it's very disgusting. This is why Bitcoin exists, to counter this irresponsible manipulation of markets. Now the question has to be, moving on from that, the question has to be, will President Macri be the one to push forward a kind of policy where we can see Bitcoin taking some kind of an important role in the Argentine economy, whether for exports or for debt repayments, or even as a strategic investment in place of gold in the long term? Well, I have my doubts. Macri currently is too busy with doing things like austerity programs, cutting fuel subsidies, raising taxes, putting up utility bills, all the stuff that poor people love. Meanwhile, a local variant of the yellow vest movement is beginning to flare up in Argentina as people fight back against what they see as a completely unrepresentative government. Macri's approval rating is abysmally low, and he has recently had to go hat in hand to the IMF to ask for more financial aid. Interestingly, though, the tone in the press seems to be, to the regular Argentinian citizens this is, don't you dare elect a leftist in the next elections, because there are presidential elections coming up rather soon in Argentina. Or, if you do that, your loan might be in trouble. Stick with our guy. He's going to get the loan for you. He's going to save Argentina because IMF is going to give him the money to do that. It is worth remembering that the IMF is not our friend. The IMF is a financial terror organization. They regularly extort countries at the behest of international corporations and banks. And if you don't believe me when I say that, check out the source documents from WikiLeaks, where they directly state that countries, the United States particularly, and the powers that back them, use the IMF, the OECD, the World Bank, and the Bank of International Settlements to achieve the control over countries. It applies to Venezuela. It applies to a lot of countries, and yes, it applies to Argentina. So I don't think that Macri is going to be the one to be bringing Bitcoin to Argentina, sadly. But what if the next president could be forward-thinking enough to pull the trigger on Bitcoin? Well, the reality is that a country is going to do it at some point. Why not Argentina? It's a good candidate. Look at how their peso has suffered. Look at what they've suffered at the hands of the international financial elites. They have been attacked relentlessly over the last decades. Someone like Macri, he is part of that international elite, so I don't see him looking to solve that problem. He wants to be friends with the people at the IMF. He probably will get a job there. Afterwards, once he pushes through enough structural adjustment programs and all these different things, well, that's a bit of speculation, guys, but we see it play out time and time again. We need someone who can actually come in and say, we need better money. We can do it. We can invest in Bitcoin. Get the first mover advantage. Some country's gonna do it. You may as well be the first country to do it. I know we had a lot of rumors that Russia might be potentially looking at it. Obviously, when one of these countries does go out and buy Bitcoin, it's not going to be like, ooh, we're thinking about buying Bitcoin next month maybe. No. They'll come out and say, hey, last month we bought 100,000 Bitcoin or 200,000 Bitcoin. And that's what it's going to be. They're going to go to an OTC desk, they're going to get some Bitcoin, and they'll announce afterwards. And then it'll be country FOMO. Once Argentina does that, Mexico's going to look and go, oh, we should get 100,000 Bitcoin too. And then France will go, ooh la la, we must get some Bitcoin. It's my worst French accent ever. Now, it's going to happen. Again, it's just a question of time. And of course, that's just strictly on the monetary side for Argentina. The ability for Bitcoin to bring sound money into their economy, the potential for blockchain to disrupt what is rampant government corruption and enhance services for people is of course massive also. But regardless of that, the government does have a lot of advantages for adopting Bitcoin. But if you're an Argentinian citizen, don't leave it up to your government to save you. If you're a citizen of any country, don't leave it up to your government to save you. Take control of your own financial destiny. Get out there and get Bitcoin. It's an amazing price at the moment, and it is economic freedom. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can shut you down. There are no capital controls for Bitcoin. There are no people who say who you can and cannot send money to with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a guard against human corruption and the failed economic policies of neoliberalism and the corrupt elites. Short governments, long Bitcoin, guys. Anyway, just my thoughts on what's going on in Argentina right now. You guys let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this, leave a thumbs up on it. You can always subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. You can hit that notification bell as well to know when I put out a new video. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.